Like we always do at this time, I go for mine, I get to shine. Now throw your hands up in the sky. I go for mine, I get to shine. Now throw your hands up in the sky.
I'ma get on the TV, mama. I'ma push it down.
Hi, I am Guadalupe Ayon with the University of Houston Production and Service Operations class. I am here today with Mike Cooley, Spring ISD Distribution Center, and he has agreed to answer a few questions about the distribution center that he works at.
Nice to meet you. Let's get started.
Well, the first question I'd like to ask you is, how do you measure the amount of textbooks, supplies, desks, and food for the school each year?
That's a difficult one to answer. Textbooks are determined by enrollment, and supplies and desks are based on prior year usage and anticipated replacements or new volume. I'm not sure about the food. That's a different department. It's handled by our child nutrition department.
Okay. Let me move on to the next one. How much could you save if they have a tighter control of inventory if there is excess supply?
I don't have a really good hard dollar figure for this one. I started trying to identify slow-moving inventory in excess a few months ago through better reporting.
Okay. What happens to the excess books or food?
Textbooks are held either at campuses or if there are extras, the actual numbers based on student enrollment. Food, I'm not really sure. That's, like I said, that's handled by our child nutrition department.
Okay. How much inventory do you keep and how do you manage the inventory?
We keep about, well, I'd say close to $1.5 million worth of inventory, and our stock level is managed by the buyers. The amount is determined by the type of the item that is required.
Okay. Has there ever been problems with too much or too little inventory, and how did you solve those issues?
Yes, I've been working on better reporting for buyers to manage inventory levels. Too little is a bad thing. Some things we just cannot run out of, food service items for instance. And too much is handled by the individual item. Ask for vendor credit or return if possible, and work with the buyers to determine the root cause of the problem.
It's not enough to hear me say you won. You only wanted me for having fun, but now I think you've gone and had your way and left me with a pile of bills to pay. I can't even rewind the tape machine to listen to your drunken reasoning. So here it is, your final lullaby. So good night, good night. You're embarrassing me, you're embarrassing you. So good night, good night. Walk away from the door, walk away from my life. So good night.
Okay, what about how does Spring ISD deal with shrinkage issues?
Spot checking counts, training, education of our staff. Fortunately, we don't have a huge shrink issue, so that's really not an issue for us.
Okay, how do they decide what should be their inventory carrying cost? Meaning, what factors associated in dealing with the inventory carrying cost?
I'm not really sure about that. Philip Ellison is our executive director of purchasing. He's working on a model for this, so I don't have much information for that.
What kind of approach they are using for inventory management and control?
Typically, we use the ABC inventory management for our inventory control.